plan is hit 500 miles. We're going to take it to the shop, change the oil and filter, and look at the DTC filter. I do have another one by GM. I'll show you all of that when we do it and how to do it. Once we hit that 500 miles, that red line is going to go from 3,500 up to 65, and then it actually unlocks a little bit of power from what I have heard. It frees up some power and the transmission mode changes a little bit. I don't know how true that is, but I'm more excited to see that red and orange band go all the way up to the higher spot. All right, so once it goes over to the 500 miles, it doesn't change instantly. I think it takes about half a mile, so you're gonna watch it. It changes to 500 right there, and then we go maybe another 2 to 3/10 of a mile. And you go, okay, when's it gonna happen? Well, here it goes right there. Red line is now at 6, starts at 5,500, so the dash looks a lot better in all modes now. I'm gonna do a quick pulse, see what it feels like, see what it sounds like, then we can use that as an idea for the exhaust. Ready? Faster than the Z06 stock, faster than the C7 Z06. However, that used to just break the tires loose in first and second gear. It wouldn't go anywhere, so obviously more acceleration. It's not as much power as that car. About the same as the NSX when it was completely stock. It's probably about the same as that, I would say. NSX with the JB4 and the downpipes, completely different animal. It would destroy this car. Definitely faster than the Porsche, of course. You know, having the dual clutch, it shifts faster than you could even think. So, pretty good indication of idea, I guess. Not as fast as the C6 ZR1. I still think that was my top car. I know a lot of people would agree with me, Corvette guys. I've been trying to buy it back for over a year and not successful. But if I could have that car back, I'd buy it back in a second. This is the DTC filter. Now, depends who you talk to and what forums you read. Everyone will tell you something different. I'm a big believer of changing the oil. Once you get that basic break-in, get the old oil out. That is going to have break-in fluid. It's also going to have material from the motor as the motor breaks in. You want to get that out. Same as this. I'm going to show you this real quick. I'm going to open it. So this is exactly the way it comes. It does come with new bolts, which is actually quite surprising. A new yellow seal. This is for one of the drain bolts. The blue seal is for the filter itself. It's around the housing, and this is what the filter looks like. Comes in a sealed packet, but as you see, it's white. The material there is super clean white. Obviously it's going to have oil on it, so it's going to get a different color, but depending on how much material is in there, you're going to see some different colors too from your old one. So I have both filters here. I have the Mobile One and the GM. I ordered this and it took longer to get, so I ordered this in the meantime, and guess what, they both came. So that is a part number for the Mobile One, the GM right here. I'll go ahead and take these out and put them side by side so you can get a look. So the filters side by side, we'll flip them over. This is where you can see a little difference. So this is the GM one on the right and the Mobile One on the left. So this is the flow. This is where the oil goes in. There is basically a valve there that almost looks like a rubber diaphragm. The oil pushes in there, and the idea is when you shut the motor off, this springs up and stops. Well, looking at the GM one, the holes for the flow look quite a bit larger than the Mobile One. Don't think it's going to really change that much. It's just interesting to see the diameter. Looking at them side by side, dimensionally, they look pretty much the same. Diameter is a little bit larger on the Mobile One. The tool that fits on there, it fits on the Mobile One. It's a little bit loose on the GM filter. So I don't think you can really go wrong with either one. Some people tend to be brand loyal, and I use Mobile One oil, so you know, I gravitate towards the Mobile One filter. Never had an issue with one, so I don't know. Maybe we'll go the GM one, seeing as it is still low on the miles, and then if we have an issue and GM see it, they see their filter on it. We have the car in the lift. Let's go ahead and look underneath. I'm going to show you where the filter and the drain bolt is. Obviously, if you're on jack stands, it's going to be a little closer to the ground, but to give you a reference, you're going to come forward right here. There is your oil filter. It's pretty much the only large hole off to the side. And then further forward right here, you see the 3 holes in the black. This one right here is your oil drain, and it's a 15mm bolt. I did show you this oil, and after looking at the handbook and then doing a little bit of checking, they recommend to use the Mobil 1040 with the Dexus in there, which is this right here. Is pretty important, and I think it's important to GM if they ever have a warranty issue. You want to make sure you use this stuff. So it's kind of tricky to get. Not every parts store has it. I actually went to the GM dealership up the road here to get this, and it's a little more expensive buying it by the quart, but you're going to need 7.5 quarts for your change, including your filter. So of course you're just going to have to buy 8 quarts. So these are going to run you about $8 a quart, and a filter is pretty cheap, so it's still a pretty inexpensive oil change. Now, talking about oil changes, GM do give you a free oil change, and they do change the DTC filter on the DTC, which is the transmission. Probably don't need replacing at 500. I'm doing it more so I can actually see what it looks like, and just a little bit more preventive maintenance there, and we'll show you it close up compared to the new one. So just make sure you use this oil. You're going to look for this right here. It might say Dexus, it might say Dexus 2, but that's what you're looking for right there. So we're going to change the DTC filter now. To do that, this panel has to come off right here. It kind of goes around that middle section, and then the aluminum cover comes off, and you'll be able to see the filter. So if you didn't have the specialty sockets like we did, the E sockets, you can get these from Advance right here. They sell this set. It's about $17. But this is your E16 socket right here. Why they decided to change that from a 10 or a 13 like GM's used forever, I don't know. This black panel, once you get all the bolts out of there, these 2 middle ones, you can leave loose and they're slotted. So make it a little easier to get it off and get it back on. You see that? Leave those in, take them out about a quarter of a turn. It will hold the cover while you get the rest of the bolts out.
So these E16 bolts, you see the head is very shallow on them. And this Titan socket seemed very deep, had a very deep like taper to it. So I put it on the sander and sanded it flat. So we're getting as much grip as we can on the bolt heads.
Your DTC filter cover is located right behind the oil filter there, and there is 4 E8 bolts holding that on. So I wouldn't recommend using power tools on this. They are a small bolt, and of course they're going into the house end of the transmission, so it's the last thing you want to damage, because it's not a replaceable part. It's not like a housing bolted to the transmission. So these covers, you're going to take all 4 bolts off first. Then we're going to show you how to take that cover off. You got to be careful not to pry it. Don't put a screwdriver in there. The cover will stay up there. It's not going to fall down. But what we're going to do is now twist this so that the ears are going to stick out of the side. So kind of interesting to see. I think we're going to cut this apart because we're not going to really need it. I'm not going to do anything with it, but we'll take a look at the elements if we see any material in there. Let's see if I can look down there with a light. It's like a dual layer. It's got like a metal mesh in there, and then it looks like it's more of a paper on the outside. These are expensive, by the way. I think it was 160 bucks, which is pretty crazy for what it is.
But it does come with all O-rings and new bolts.
So we have the new cover and seal filter back in there. Now another thing that GM talk about in the manual is if you do plan on tracking this, to add 2 quarts of DCT fluid. Well, that's where you would add it right there. If you see that bolt head, almost looks like a shinier chrome looking bolt. That's where you're going to add it. Now if you put it in with the car level, it's just going to run out. So they're telling you to put it on an angle. So the easiest way would be to use a couple of jacks if you're doing it in your driveway. We have it on the lift. We're going to lower it down on the lift and put the 2 left tires on our ramps. That way we're not jacking the car on these spots here. So we've got 2 quarts in the transmission. Just look over everything, make sure everything is clean, everything is torqued. Time to put the shields back on. So reverse order, the metal shield first and then the composite shield. We now have our new fresh oil change in there. 7.5 quarts of the Mobil 1. Make sure you get the Dexus oil. You can get it from your Chevy dealer, and use whatever filter you prefer. So we got 512 miles. The DCT filter didn't look bad, but it looked kind of dark, and I feel better knowing it's got a new one in there. We did have the 2 quarts. Give you an idea, we only had to lift the left side of the car up about 8 inches to get those 2 quarts in, so it didn't have a problem with that. It just started to come out at the 2 quart mark. Last video we dropped the car on the factory coilovers and did spacers. Well, it was a little higher in the front than the back, and I wanted to go a little bit lower, so this is on our next video. We're going to put the iBox springs on there. These are a 1-inch drop on their own, and then it gives you more adjustability on those factory coilovers. I'm not looking at slamming the car, just want a little bit more even, down about probably 1/4 of an inch. So stay tuned for that video and we'll show you the procedure and what it looks like, so you've got to compare between stock lowered on coilovers and springs. I'll let you know in the future how this car feels, how, if there's any change at all with the transmission fluid. It's supposed to make the transmission a little smoother, but I don't have any issues with this one, so I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's nice to see the filter was clean. Next, coming up on this car, we still have plans to do the exhaust and do a before and after dyno, as well as a couple of other pieces I've got coming for you. So stay tuned. See you in the next video. Don't forget, enjoy your cars.